Today I want to show you a super simple and very reliable one-rail kicking system where you can easily kick balls like that in without having to measure anything. I've learned this one many years ago by no other than world champion Rolf Souquet. But before we're gonna do that, let's start a bit simpler if you're just starting out. So when you have balls, for example like that, and the balls are basically on the same line, you can see the cue ball is on the same line as the ball you want to kick in, then you don't have to use any system at all. Because all you have to do now is find the distance from this ball that you want to kick in to the cue ball, take the midpoint in between those balls, so the point where you have the same distance to the 8 ball and the same distance to the cue ball, which should basically be like here. Then you're just going to shoot to that point in between, which should be here. And then you will make that ball in with ease. You can see absolutely no problem, perfect hit. But unfortunately, when you're trying to kick balls, they are not always on the same line because now the cue ball is way in the center of the table. So you can't just take the midpoint, because what would happen if you take the midpoint, which would be here, you would hit way too far on the right, as you can see. So what can you do in that case? Well, I have a very simple system. So what you want to do is basically, here is the ghost ball. So you just want to put your cue stick over the ghost ball and then extend your cue stick all the way to the rail. So this is the first step. The second step is now keep the tip of your cue right here and bring your cue in between the cue ball and the ghost ball. So maybe like this. And the idea is you want to have the same distance from the ghost ball to the cue, and this distance should be the same as from the cue to the cue ball. So I would say it's pretty much like this. So if you found that point, the last and final step you want to do is just shift your cue parallel over until it's over the cue ball. And now you already found your point. So let's see. Just a bit above center with medium speed is how you want to hit that. And you can see we made the 8-ball into the pocket. But of course, the 8-ball is not always hanging in the pocket. Sometimes it's a bit away. And the good news is it's still the same. This system still works that way. So once again, don't forget, you want to put your cue over the ghost ball. This is important. If you just put your cue over like here, then the cue ball will hit here, but you got to hit the ball approximately here to make it into the pocket. So very important. I hope you saw it on the camera. So let's put the cue over the ghost ball. Remember, extend all the way to the rail. Find the midpoint between ghost ball and cue ball, which should be approximately here. Now, important, parallel shift your cue until it's perfectly over the cue ball. And I think if we hit here with a medium speed and a bit above center, we have a very good chance to make the ball. But why does this even work? Let me show you what's behind it by having a look at it from above. Let's first bring the ghost ball onto the table, and if the cue ball hits exactly here, the 8-ball is gonna go into the heart of the pocket. Now remember, first step, bring your cue exactly over the ghost ball and extend it all the way to the rail. Now keep your tip where it is and just angle your cue until it's perfectly in between the ghost ball and the cue ball, so the distance should be the same. Now all you have to do is just parallel shift your cue until it's perfectly over the cue ball. And now you already have your point. And if we mirror the incoming angle, you can see the cue ball has no other chance than just to go to the ghost ball. And this is because the angle of incidence equals the angle of reflection. So first step, find the ghost ball where the 8-ball goes into the pocket. Remember that point and bring your cue stick over that ghost ball point. Watch the shadow here in that case because of the camera angle. Once you're happy, you want to keep the tip on the rail and just bring your cue perfectly in between the cue ball and the imaginary ghost ball. This is important. If you found that approximately, then you're gonna shift your cue over, parallel, don't change the angle until it's over the cue ball. And from here on, you're done, and it's not that difficult. It looks and sounds difficult, but it's very doable. The only thing is you want to put a medium speed a tiny bit above center on the cue ball. And the reason for that is that not only left and right spin change the cue ball's path, but also high and low. So here we have the angle of incidence and reflection, which should be the same. But if you're adding follow to the cue ball now, the cue ball will leave that line because it starts to bend. And luckily this makes total sense because you're shooting into it that direction. This means the forward spin will make the cue ball want to go always into that direction, even when the cue ball leaves the rail. So you can see after it leaves the rail, it still spins towards that specific direction, and this is why it leaves the line. If you're hitting low on the other hand, you can see the cue ball now wants to always go into that direction, and this is why it leaves the line into the other direction now.
And this also works if you have really great distances. For example, let's try this. Bring your cue over the ghost ball, which is here. Now, of course, this is gonna be a bit more tricky because you're really far away to find the midpoint. I would say should be approximately here. Now let's parallel shift all the way to here, and unfortunately you can see the side pocket is in the way. So now you have two options. Either hit a bit to the left or to the right. If you're hitting a bit to the left to the point, then you need more follow or maybe a trace of right spin. If you're gonna hit here, you need to hit hard and low and a trace of left spin, whatever you prefer. But let's give it a try. Let's use a touch of right spin here because remember we can't hit our point because the side pocket is in the way. And well, a bit too little spin, but you can see at least we made contact with the 8 ball. And in that case, our opponent has a very difficult time.
So of course, you can't always make the ball. This is just not possible. But you have a very, very good chance to make at least contact, avoid the foul, and something good can happen. The most difficult part is finding the midpoint. It takes a bit of practice. And then also the parallel shift. These are the two things where things can go wrong. But with a bit of practice, you are very capable to do that. And then remember, very important, put the right spin onto the cue ball, which is just a bit above center with a medium speed, because we just learned not only left and right spin changes the path, but also how hard, how high, and how low you're hitting. And this is why at kick shots, especially one-rail kick shots, I like to look at the cue ball last because I want to make sure that the tip is absolutely at the right place and doesn't go to the left, to the right, too high or too low. If you want to learn how to put a nice stroke onto the cue ball, a repeatable stroke, then watch this video right here. And for more lessons on how to play pool, subscribe to my channel, leave a comment down below, and I will see you at the next one.